Captain Gouveia, you outlined the involvement of the PSC, and you also touched on the system as you know it and how it functions within GCOM. How then can there be legitimate allegations of 200,000 perhaps dead people on that list, and that allegations that the number of electors on the list represents such a high percentage of the population that really it isn't a credible list?
It's actually a good question. But first of all, let me talk to you about the numbers of the people on our database, because we're not talking about the voters list, you're talking about the National Register of Registrants. If you have continuous registration, obviously you're dealing with a lot more efficient of a system, because now you're capturing all of the people that you could not have captured in house-to-house registration. Because when the house-to-house registration is over, if you're not at home, you're missed. And so the pilots, the loggers, the miners, intransient workers, Amerindians who don't normally be in one place all the time, and particularly people traveling on business, people traveling for school overseas, or even Guyanese living overseas. Remember, so long as you're a Guyanese, you have every legal right to hold a Guyanese ID card. And so the continuous cycles of registration are actually capturing, in a lot more efficient manner, a lot more Guyanese onto the National Register of Registrants. So it would not be unusual to have 650,000 people on the National Register of Registrants, because you're also dealing with 14-year-olds. And you're dealing with a lot of Guyanese living in the diaspora who would have come home for holidays and register. Now, but to vote, it's a different matter. To vote, you have to be in Guyana. There's no residency requirement to vote. So long as you're here in Guyana, you're a Guyanese and you hold a registration, an ID card, you're authorized to vote, and you're on the voters list, and you're on the National Register of Registrants. And so that, to me, would explain very clearly the issue of the size, the number of people on the list, because it's a lot more efficient. But I would say that whoever made the allegation that there are 200,000 people improperly inserted on the National Register of Registrants is very, very, very misinformed. It is just not physically possible. With all the checks and balances, GCOM was actually exceptionally efficient over the last couple of years. And Loingfield knows the system. He's an expert on these systems. And the whole check and balances systems of registering people, of getting onto that system. Like if you went into one of the registration booths, you have people from every political party sitting there, and GCOM. If you go there to register, everybody in the room have to accept the fact of who you are before they actually go through the process of registering you. And then you still take about 2 weeks before you actually get the ID card, while they go through the checks and balances of going to see where you're living and so on. And so the GCOM systems is so tight that it would prevent, and because it also is protected with your fingerprints, with your biometrics. So every person on the list is supported by their biometrics. There's no way you could have 200,000 people added to that list. But the allegations of dead people is a real one, in the sense that, but if that is the case, GCOM will need to explain, and the post office, why the monthly procedure of sending the list of deaths to GCOM. GCOM was not doing their work on cleaning the list. Now I could understand that maybe people who were registered and gone overseas and they died, maybe GCOM would not have known. But that to me would not be a significant number. But what is more significant about this, Wesley, is that dead people can't vote. And I cannot vote for you. And the reason is, if you understand how tight the GCOM polling station procedures are, when you appear to that polling station and say, my name is Wesley Curtin, and I'm here to vote, there are people from the PPP, AFC, PNC, there's observers, and everybody in front of them, there's a list with the names and your photograph next to that name. And so when you go and say, my name is Wesley Curtin, and you present yourself, everybody looks at the list, find your name and find your picture and associate it, and only then will they take you off. And only then, when everybody in the room agrees that you're Wesley Curtin, that the presiding officer would hand you a ballot paper. And so there's no way somebody could vote for somebody else. Not in our electoral system, not anymore. Can't happen. Now, I'm not saying that people can't attempt to overrun a polling station, for example, and raid out and leave only one party. But what happens, there's always GCOM staff in there. There are always observers in the booth. But if for some miracle you raid everybody out the polling station, then maybe people could overrun the polling station, but that would be an exceptionally unusual and exceptional situation.